Eric, you hear me? Can you hear me live?
I'm here, man. I'm here. I'm in Philadelphia, the land of cheesesteaks and fourth down conversions.
It's a bummer that so we're not able to do this live on the one day that I told people in our article that we put out every Thursday with our two to three games that we write up, that, hey, you can listen in live if you want to. And I assumed it wouldn't raise the needle whatsoever. And now it certainly won't, because you being all the way across the country in Philadelphia is causing technical difficulties. But at least I can hear you. That's what matters. You had an early flight this morning, and you didn't have an ID, and yet you made it to Philadelphia. And so I need to hear the story.
Yeah, so when we play at the Y, they make you like give out your ID to get a basketball, right? And so sometimes my ID gets discarded from the actual wallet contents, right?
Uh-huh.
So somehow I've misplaced it somewhere, clearly. And it's been for about 10 days. And for like the first 7 days, I was like, oh, it's whatever. I'll just figure it out, And then I realized I was flying to Philly on Thursday, and I freaked out. And so I did a ton of research. I did a ton of research on what you could do without an ID. And I found two previous IDs. So I'm carrying around a Nebraska ID. and I'm carrying around an ID from when I used to live in Wisconsin. I also have an expired passport. I actually have not, even though I've traveled quite a bit over the last 10 years, it's all been domestic. And so I haven't got my passport renewed also. So I have these three pieces of ID
You're a mess.
that are not worthwhile. And then interestingly, I have a picture of my ID on my phone. So apparently that combination, that lock, it will work. And so I get up there, and it's early. I got to the airport so early. It's like the antithesis of you. I got to the airport.
Your flight was at what time?
My flight was at 5:30.
Okay.
And I got there at 3:30.
Jesus Christ.
And the security doesn't open till 4. So I'm sitting here next to the Red, the Cincinnati Reds Statue guy.
There must be no one in the airport. I'm shocked the doors are even open.
Yeah, just coding. I started working, and then I get there. There's enough people where I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a disaster here, so I'm going to be last in line. So I'm last in line. I get there, and this guy at 4 a.m. is just not having any of my nonsense.
Really?
So he sends me over to this woman, and she goes, okay, well, this is what we have to do. And essentially they went through all my luggage, and I got, let's just call it an invasive pat down from this gentleman who was basically half awake. And a little bit of Alan from The Hangover came over me. The tuxedo fitting. Yep. But ultimately I survived, and I'm here.
I don't know where to begin, because the fact that you showed up to the airport at 3 a.m. is amazing. That was probably about 20 minutes after I went to sleep, which hurts my brain a little bit.
I think I texted you at that time, knowing that.
Yeah, it was a lullaby. That's amazing to me. Now, I get why you showed up early, because you were worried about, getting through. But also, that's so early. It's the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky airport. There's no one flying out of there at 5 a.m.
Yeah, I don't have TSA pre though.
True.
There are a lot of assumptions you bring into flying that I don't bring into flying. But yeah,
that's fair.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, that airport is deceptive, because they make you take this 10-minute walk to get out to the terminals. And so I'm used to getting in there and just flying through, and it's not that easy. So I understand why you got there a little early. I'm not surprised that they gave you kind of a hard time, because I would think that at bigger airports they deal with this a lot. People lose their IDs and whatnot. And I actually knew that you could fly without an ID, so I wasn't that worried about it. The whole frisk thing is a little weird though, right?
And to his credit, he told me exactly what was going to happen. And it happened.
He prepared you for it.
So I was tense. There was no like George Costanza level, like, movement there. It was good.
Did you have some time to get yourself some breakfast at the airport?
I did not, actually. I said, okay, I'm going to get to Philly at like 7:30.
You're going to wait.
I'm going to wait. In fact, I haven't eaten yet.
Wow.
So
You're waiting for the cheesesteak. That's what you're doing.
Exactly. Although I don't like cheese, so we'll see how I can piece that together.
I'm sure you can find something else that's unhealthy in Philadelphia. What's your favorite meal to eat in the airport?
Chinese.
Wow. We're so similar, but also so vastly different.
Yes.
You'd have to hold me at gunpoint before I'd eat a meal and B, Chinese in the airport.
There was a month when I was a professor when I traveled every single week for 6 weeks, and I ate, and I think because the connector was in Chicago, I ate at the same Chinese restaurant in the like at 7 a.m. every single time.
Wow. All right. On that note, we're going to get into football. This actually, talking about airports reminds me of the home field conversation that we had about how home field advantage seemed to have gone away. And imagine having to take these trips in crappy airport conditions, fly with other sick people, and then play a football game. I understand why home field has declined of late. Let's do a quick MVP, Coach of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year. We don't need to dive deeply, but I think it's a good conversation to have. Your MVP and your top three for MVP.
Yeah, Wilson is leading the league in WAR by half a point. So
half a win.
That's
a lot.
So that's an egregious amount. So he's clearly the MVP of the
There are
NFL.
good players that are worth in an entire season a half a win above replacement.
Yep. And then it's tough because and then after, so I'm going to pick two, and I know the third one's not a candidate for MVP, but I'm just going to highlight it. I'm going to go Deshaun Watson at 2, and then I'm going to do George Kittle, who by WAR is the most valuable non-quarterback.
I like that. My top 2 are the same. I think that by the end of the season, Deshaun Watson makes it real close. He's got an opportunity facing the Ravens coming up, and then the Patriots to really put a stamp on, without, with Brissett's injury and the Colts, not being great, a chance to kind of make his stamp while Wilson has a tough time, winning that division, obviously. And then third, I was going to go George Kittle because of the name, and I won't copy you. So I'm going to go Dak Prescott over Lamar Jackson, just to be a little different, because I think Dak Prescott is overcoming things in Dallas while Lamar Jackson has had the benefit of a wonderful environment. And I'm not saying that I would actually take Dak Prescott over Lamar Jackson if I were building a team. I don't think I would. I think I would take Lamar Jackson. But Dak Prescott has played incredibly well despite having injuries to Amari Cooper, Tyron Smith, Lyle Collins. So I'm going to put him at 3.
He's also averaging a full yard per pass attempt more. And I know Lamar brings the rushing to the table, but Dak has brought it as a passer more than we've ever seen him before, and good on him since it's a contract year. Those are great choices.
He's taking sacks like a third of the time that he did last season.
Right.
He's throwing the ball further downfield, and I don't think Kellen Moore is as much of a wizard as we thought. I think a lot of this should be on Dak Prescott. So that's my top 3. We'll see how that changes. Coach of the Year, your top 3.
Let's go with John Harbaugh, Frank Reich, and
Matt Nagy.
I'm gonna be a little bit different here. I'm gonna say Sean McDermott.
Oh, that's interesting. Give me so ours are gonna be very different. So let me give you mine, and then we'll go from there. So my number 1 is gonna be Sean Payton. My number 2 is going to be John Harbaugh. And my number 3
Kyle Shanahan
is going to be Kyle Shanahan. And it is so hard for me to leave Frank Reich off of this list. And I almost feel guilty like right now because of it. And I think I might in a pinch put him ahead of Kyle Shanahan, but he's really close. So we're drastically different there. My reasoning with Sean Payton is simply that I know people are talking about the Saints, but they're not talking about them as much as people are talking about the Niners, Patriots, the Ravens, even the Packers. And I think that's just asinine. They've played a harder schedule. They've played with their backup quarterback. They're the most complete team in the NFL. They have also had injuries. And I think whether you're looking backwards or forwards, they're the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's so for me. And your names are as good as mine, I think there, and I think that's a top 5 group that you can't. Andy Reid can be folded in there because of the injuries he's had to his offense, but those 5 names for me, I picked Harbaugh because of the decisions and the fact that I think from a talent standpoint, he's punching above. I mean, the Niners acquired a ton of talent already, in the offseason. And like Kyle Shanahan's doing a terrific job, but the Ravens did nothing but subtract talent from that team other than at running back. And they're still in the hunt because of, they've really made a push there. Reich, of course, for me, you get a lot of sympathy starting 5-3 when 2 weeks before the season, your quarterback decides to retire. And then Sean McDermott, to me, like if you look, the Josh Allen thing's weird, and we both would say, you don't draft Josh Allen ahead of Lamar Jackson. You don't draft him where you drafted him. But everything else about that team makes a lot of sense. Their defense is coverage first, pass rush second. They craft an offense. I think Dable crafts an offense that limits our exposure to Josh Allen's weaknesses, right? And because of that, and they've had an easy schedule and all this kind of stuff, but because of that, I give McDermott a decent amount of credit. I mean, they were supposed to tank in 2017 and they didn't because Tyrod Taylor played better than he should have. And then last season they took, some steps back to take some steps forward this year. And I think they should get some recognition for that. I don't think he's the coach of the year, but I think at least he deserves an honorable mention.
No, I like that. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of your points. In fact, I made an argument that John Harbaugh is the best coach in the NFL just yesterday afternoon and really thought long and hard about him versus Sean Payton. And I think it's just super darn close. The thing that took it over the edge for me is that even though John Harbaugh's decisions have been incredible, I think they're in light of how much it's improved. And Sean Payton has been making really good decisions for a while. And so I didn't want to overvalue that growth relative to the fact that they've also had some disappointing losses. So that's what pushed Sean Payton over the top for me. But I do think both of these races are super interesting because the Coach of the Year one is very close. The MVP one shouldn't be very close right now. But just because of the way people view quarterback play and the fact that Russell Wilson isn't winning that division, it's a very interesting one. If they beat the Niners on Monday, which we're going to talk about here in a second, that obviously his odds will change a lot. I think right now he's plus 275, plus 300, and I believe Deshaun Watson is in that range now. He's come up quite a bit. Aaron Rodgers at I think plus 600, Lamar Jackson. It depends. I've seen a bunch of different things, but anywhere from like plus 600 to plus 300. So interesting stuff. All right, comeback player of the year. I have to put this on here for one reason and one reason only. Who's your comeback player of the year?
Well, that's really a good one because I have a hard time. I mean, obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo deserves some recognition there.
He does.
Dalvin Cook, I think, deserves some recognition there. Coming back from 2 seasons of injury-filled play, and then here's one, and it's in the Bay Area as well as I think Richard Sherman.
Oh. Interesting. The Richard Sherman one, I think he's an inspirational leader. I'm not sure that he's playing.
His stats are a lot better than his grades are.
Yeah.
Let's put it but at the same time, that defense, whether it's whichever way the arrow is pointing, that defense is such that like the coverage has improved enough with that in conjunction with the pass rush has been lethal, right? So, I mean, Sherman hasn't been terrible in seasons, but he certainly hasn't been elite, and now he has the 5th highest grade among corners so far this year. So, good on him.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. Jimmy G is the right answer, and I just wanted to say that I talked about that. Yeah, he was so great against Arizona. I'm nervous a little bit because Seattle is a big game, but Seattle doesn't have a great defense either. And I'm so excited about the idea of Emmanuel Sanders being on that team, because I don't think we talked about it being important, but I'm not sure we understood how big of an addition he is over the crap they've had at wide receiver, because he's like, they've had guys that are decent, but he is a legitimate top 10 receiver. I think he's 9th in PFF grade this season. Alrighty, we're going to get into the games. Of course, we write an article. It publishes every Thursday morning. You should go check it out. We write up our picks there. And aside from the lock of the week, we have been absolutely crushing these write-ups. I think we're like basically undefeated on everything we've written up, except for the lock of the week recently. So do with that what you will. We are not deterred. You know, we're not going to get down because of a few off weeks. We're going to trust in ourselves and keep trying to hammer these out. I'm not going to go on tilt. I promise. I think we may have gone on tilt a little bit last week with the way that we tried to mix things up. Not going to happen this week. So we're going to discuss about 4 games here that are interesting. We're going to start with Thursday night. The Chargers are going to Oakland. Chargers beat the Packers in a game where quite literally everyone on the planet bet against them. The entire stadium was full of Packer fans. I wouldn't be surprised if Chargers families didn't even go to the game because it was just such a inundation of Packers fans. And the Packers, I believe, were 5-point favorites by the time that closed. So now they go to Oakland, and everyone seems to kind of be back on the Chargers in this game. Oakland, though, still getting a little bit of love. This is an interesting game, just a 1.5-point spread.
Yeah, and I even see it somewhere moving out to 2. We printed it at 1. Not a whole lot of difference between 1, 1.5, and 2, to be quite fair. There's still some value there if you want to lay the points with the Chargers. Interestingly, last week there was a lot of money that came in that was line movement money that lost. And we were the beneficiary of it on Greenline for games like the Chargers, where we were ambivalent about them until the market loved Green Bay so much that the Chargers were a plus price pop for us at the time. That's not going to be the case this week in this particular game because the money's moving in our direction. Yeah, the money's moving in our direction here. To me, and I wrote this up in the article, to me it's like, okay, there's a lot going on here in terms of the endowment sort of effect, right? The Chargers think they're a playoff team. The Chargers believe that the Chargers, in their minds, are a contender in the AFC. Now they're not. They're clearly, the evidence would suggest otherwise. But they are probably going to fight like hell to maintain what they thought they were endowed with. Mm-hmm. The Raiders, on the other hand, are playing with house's money at this point right now, right? There is nothing that can happen the rest of the season for the Oakland Raiders that would make this season into a disappointment, in my opinion. So that's going to cause them to play games like they did on Sunday, loose and effective against the Lions. But the Lions gave them a great deal of opportunities in that game. McKissick fumbled the ball in Raiders territory in the first quarter. Even after John Gruden called a timeout to give the Lions an opportunity from the 1-yard line, the Lions, who have 3 awesome receivers, decided to go with 3 tight ends and run a play fake. Right. The Raiders are one of the worst defenses in the NFL. The Chargers have some extremely good talent on offense. And so that's where I see this. I see this as the Chargers finally playing up to their potential offensively, second week with a new offensive coordinator, and the Raiders getting exposed defensively and not being able to keep up on the other side.
I like all of your points. I'm apprehensive because the thing with the Chargers is that they have a little bit. Now, I don't want this to be a slight to them because they're not the Titans, but a little bit of a Titans feel where they just they bring you in with a good performance and then they just totally flip-flop the next week. And they've actually, aside from that Packers game, which I know we're quick to say Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram and they're getting healthier on defense, but can that also be a lot about the Packers just having this massive letdown game? And we kind of go back to the fact that the Chargers lost to Joe Flacco, Duck Hodges. They beat Mitch Trubisky by 1 point. They lost to Ryan Tannehill. Like, they have lost to a lot of really crappy teams and really crappy offenses. And the thing with the Raiders is they're actually a good offense.
Yep.
And they're at home. And so that's the thing that gives me a little bit of pause. That being said, I'm not going to argue with the numbers here. And if you go to PFF.com, get yourself an elite subscription and get PFF Greenline, you'll see that there's a little bit of value here on the Chargers, taking into consideration all of the things that we have just talked about, right? But not overvaluing them. So I can kind of get on board here. The big reason why is that Derek Carr has played well in games where everything is clean, right? Where he's got time to, go downfield and not worry about the pass rush. And I do think there's a chance that the Chargers are able to give him just enough of an issue, and those corners are able to cover just enough to make Derek Carr turn into a pumpkin. Well,
and it's a double whammy too, because Carr, so right now Rivers and Carr have basically the same PFF grade. They have almost the exact passer rating when clean. Mm-hmm. Rivers has a 75 passer rating when pressured, which is reasonable.
Yep.
Carr has a 110 rating when pressured.
Right.
He's leading the NFL right now in touchdown passes on third down. Right. So like, Carr's playing terrifically, but there are aspects of his game that are in that unstable category. And you wonder, okay, they don't have the best receivers in the world. Tyrell Williams is their best receiver. He was like not even able to crack the field at times with the Chargers. They have tight ends or younger, but still sort of unproven. The Chargers, for all their faults, Casey Hayward's a pretty good corner. If whoever he is going to go up against is probably not going to have as good of a game as normal. And you just sprinkle in some regression for Derek Carr, the fact that the Chargers are a better road team than they are home team, all that kind of stuff. I really do like this game. So I think it's in contention here, and it certainly is one that we wrote up on the website.
It is. You can go check it out. All right, next game that we are going to discuss is the Baltimore Ravens. They're coming to visit us. Probably actually would rather visit us than the actual Cincinnati Bengals team, because would probably offer more of a resistance, to be perfectly honest. The Bengals are starting Ryan Finley. The spread on this game is 10. What we are going to talk about is the total, which sits at 44. And a couple of weeks ago, I would have had a real issue with this. And the biggest reason is that the Ravens are sort of on this path to prove everyone wrong. Now they just beat the Patriots. And so maybe there's a little bit of we can just kind of get through this game. We don't need to try and run up the score. We're not worried about Ryan Finley lighting us up. And so really the thing that would give me pause here is that Ryan Finley could light it up for the Ravens anyways by just throwing the ball to Earl Thomas and Marcus Peters.
Yeah, I mean, this is a situation I remember 2 years ago we had the under in the Chargers-Bills game that Peterman started, and of course, like, all that made sense, and then he throws 5 interceptions, and that's how that game goes over in the first half, basically. So that's the issue. Now, we also, PFF Greenline had the under the last time they played the Bengals. That game started with a kickoff return for a touchdown. The Bengals even got a backdoor touchdown to cover the double-digit spread, and it still only got to 40, right?
Right.
I agree with your handicap here in terms of, okay, they're not playing to prove anything here. They're probably playing to get out of here. And Ryan Finley doesn't strike me as a Peterman type turnover machine. There have been games like this for the Ravens, right? When they had Arizona at home, it's sort of a young team with a young quarterback. They played that game close to the vest. That game ended 23-17 as well. The Seahawks game was at 46, but again, that's against Russell Wilson. Steelers game was at 49. That went into overtime just to hit the over. So they've played under games, and I think their style of play, if there's any resistance to the running game at all, it's probably going to play under. And what I talked to you yesterday about, which was, Joe Mixon for the Bengals has been horrific running the football in terms of, efficiency. He's something like 3.2 yards per carry. the Ravens up front defensively are just bad enough to let him get 4 yards a carry, which I think actually plays well to this under. It'll get Cincinnati to midfield and punt rather than punting from their own 20, enough to, I think, maybe flip the field a few times to get this game to play to that total.
Yeah, 44 is tough. And now I'm going to check the weather here. And the reason I'm going to check the weather is it was raining this morning.
All right.
And I ride my bike to work every morning, and I just didn't think to even check it. So I'm like about to walk outside, and I see it pouring rain. It's like, oh man, we're already at this point in the year. But then I looked at the weather report, and it was like supposed to snow this afternoon. So let me check here. Actually, it looks like it's going to be nice, like 56, no snow in the forecast. So I don't know that makes me feel any particular type of way.
Well,
44 is just tough because it's right below that key number. The Ravens are just they're good, and good teams can just end up scoring a lot of points on really bad teams without even trying.
Yeah, and this game open, it was 46.5 in the middle part of the week, right?
Value.
So we have seen folks agree with us here, but there's still some value. This is not a we're talking about a 0.4% above break even, but it's worth talking about just because you might want to play, for example, a first half here if you can, because 44. You're clearly going to be getting something higher than 21. I'd have to see what the first half total is. But the first half total might offer value if it's above 21.5, because you could get what you got last week in Dallas, although the first half did go over there as well. But just like a late touchdown screwing over your total, right? That doesn't, as you said, a number of times, those incentives aren't necessarily aligned when it, in the first half, right? Teams can play, closer to the vest and not, chase points early in the game. So that's something to consider for sure. As I look now, the total is 22.5 first half. It's juiced to the under a little bit, minus 115. But I think that's probably, if you're gun shy now about 44 full game, that might be a situation to play. I'm
with you. I think this one.
I think it makes the Hall of very good, not the Hall of lock of the week.
Yes. All right. Let's talk about the Sunday night game. If for no other reason than it's an interesting one, and the spread is 3, and so our model currently sees there being no value on either side. But it's a Sunday night game, and it's a good game. And so I'm going to make us, say we're in a pick'em league. I think many of us are, which side we would go towards. So the Cowboys are 3-point favorites. The total is at 48. And this game is really interesting because I want to pitch you something. I am of the belief that Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins are very similar quarterbacks. Reject, accept timidly, or like, yes, you're spot on.
I accept. I would say that Dak Prescott's floor is a lot higher than Kirk Cousins' floor.
Okay.
And Cousins' ceiling is a lot higher than Dak's ceiling.
Interesting. Okay.
But I think that their median is the same.
So I agree with the floor part because Dak Prescott can run with the ball, and he seems to be more with it upstairs. Like watching that Kansas City game over and over again with Kirk Cousins, I felt like Kirk Cousins left his brain in Minnesota, legitimately. And it feels like that happens at least 5 to 6 times a year, particularly when they play good teams. With Dak Prescott, like sometimes it doesn't work out, but I always feel like the guy's there mentally. So I get that. I'm curious about the ceiling, though, because we have seen Dak Prescott in a great situation be the leader of a really good offense. And even this year, when the situation has not been that great, he has been tremendous. He's dealt with the highest drop rate in the NFL. He's dealt with Amari Cooper going down for a little bit or being hampered in games. Both his tackles going out. I mean, when both his tackles have been out, he had a quick pressure rate that was 45%. In other words, pressure was coming his way in under 2.5 seconds, 45% of the time he dropped back, and has still managed to be one of the most successful quarterbacks in the NFL. So I would push back on that a little bit. I think they both have super high ceilings, though, because to me, the reason I compare these guys is when things are right, they can be top 10 quarterbacks. When things aren't right, they can be bottom 5 quarterbacks. And that's my whole reasoning around it.
Yeah, for me, for my money, I just think Kirk is just a more like when Kirk sets his feet and throws the ball to the open receiver, I think he just does it so much more effectively than almost all the quarterbacks in the NFL, really. I mean, his deep passes, especially, that last, month or so, but even,
right.
Historically, I just think his arm talent and his ability to, be accurate down the field is just, it surpasses Dak's. Not to say that Dak's bad there. It's just to say that, like, for example, this year Prescott has, and a few of these might not be turnover worthy plays, but he has, almost twice the rate of turnover worthy plays as Kirk Cousins. He has 3 interceptions on deep balls, right? Yeah. Cousins is the second highest rated, NFL quarterback rating on deep passes behind Russell Wilson and ahead of Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes, right? I mean, I just think that when I say ceiling, I'm thinking, okay, if you're playing a defense that's going to give you that all day, I think Cousins maybe puts up a little bit better numbers than Prescott. Whereas if you have an offense like last year where, the offensive line gives you 50 something sacks and your running back's overweight, you have to acquire a wide receiver midseason, Dak can get you to the playoffs and Kirk can't. And that's kind of how I see the two of them.
I think it's an interesting question, but the similarities are definitely there. So this line is basically saying I think that they're even, teams. I don't think the home field in Dallas is that fantastic. So 3 seems like a bit of a stretch to me. And so for that reason, I think I would have to take the points here, although I definitely like the Cowboys team better. The parts of the Vikings that I like are the defense, which we know is unstable, but not their coverage so much. So that worries me. Like, I think Amari Cooper is going to roast Trey Waynes and Xavier Rhodes with reckless abandon. And really, the Vikings are like praying that Everson Griffin just toasts Tyron Smith so many times that they're able to get to Dak Prescott. And then on the other side of things, the Vikings don't have Adam Thielen. And as much as Olabisi Johnson has been solid, it's just a huge step down from Adam Thielen. And so in a game where the teams are very close, it's I really do like the home team better, but 3 points feels a little bit rich to me. So I would take the Vikings +3, I think.
Yeah, I would even say if you can get this money line price up to $1.50, we probably could see some value there. Maybe 160 or something like that. If you're in a pick'em league and you're trying to catch up to other people, the Vikings could be a straight up pick that could help flip a bit for you. To me, in this game, where Dallas has had a lot of success against teams that have struggled at linebacker, and we saw it on Monday night. Alec Ogletree's a disaster. Deion Buchanan's a disaster. And the front seven of the Vikings is not. They have some issues that, no Sheldon Richardson, no interior pass rush, but Linval Joseph can hold down the point of attack. Danielle Hunter against Lyle Collins, I think, is an advantage to the Vikings. And Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr, I think, are more than good enough to neutralize Zeke and Tony Pollard, both in the running game and throwing the ball short. I think that you flipped it to the other side. I think Dalvin Cook against the regressing linebackers of the Cowboys in the passing game could be something that the Vikings exploit. Now, they did not choose to do it against Kansas City last week, which is even more exploitable. So the question remains, like, who coaches better in this game? And to me, I'm not sure. I think we've seen Stefanski and Kellen Moore both have a lot of success this year, but if I had to, I think I'd just take the points with the Vikings. But this is such an evenly matched game, in my opinion. No,
it is. And if it comes down to a 4th down, everyone gives Garrett a hard time. But I actually have way more faith in Garrett making the correct 4th down decision than I do Zimmer.
Yes.
Like by a country mile. The Cowboys are interesting because they have gotten off to really slow starts, and the Vikings are a team that plays well from ahead. So that might be something to monitor. I don't know. It should be a really good game, and I'm looking forward to watching it. But we're not going to consider it for the lock of the week. So we just had to get it in there. The game that we are all waiting for happens on Monday night. It feels like Monday night gets one really good game each year. Remember, they got Rams Chiefs last year, and they promoted the living hell out of it. And now they've got Seahawks 49ers. I'm not sure I've been as excited for a game this side of Ravens Patriots this entire season. And the Niners obviously undefeated. The Seahawks, interestingly, they've lost a couple of games, but both these teams, the Niners, everyone gives them crap for playing nobody. The Seahawks haven't played anybody yet, really, either, and both these teams have really hard schedules going forward. Now, here's the thing. The Niners were 6-point favorites on Monday morning when we were bleary-eyed and half dead in here. And I had an awakening, right, when I saw that the Seahawks were 6-point underdogs in this game. And I expected, I think you probably would agree here, I expected this to come down a little bit off of the key number of 6 because of Russell Wilson. It's now 6.5. So can you explain, what's your explanation here? Because I am a little confused.
Interestingly, the money line price has gone down for Seattle. So you could have gotten them at 230 earlier in the week. It's 211 now. So there is a little bit of, it's kind of like it's two-way, right? And the difference between 6 and 6.5 is a lot more now that the extra points get missed a lot. But this isn't something, it's not like it's going out to 7 here. So it's interesting. I don't agree with this line move. Obviously, we like Seattle here, as we said in the write-up. The issue is of course that Seattle is great offensively despite a lot of things, and they're very poor defensively, and we don't always see the manifestation of that badness. However, they've been able to keep up with these teams despite it. We saw the Rams on Thursday Night Football against them. They let the Rams do whatever they want, and Russell Wilson just goes, okay, toe for toe. Tampa Bay was the same thing. We had the under in that game. That wasn't terrible. And it ended up terribly there. Tampa Bay did whatever they wanted offensively, and Wilson just says, okay. And then the last time we picked the Seahawks, which was, I believe, in Cleveland, it was a rare game where Cleveland moved the ball and scored points.
Yep.
And Wilson just matched, drive for drive with them. So it's the better quarterback getting points here. And I understand all the other matchups favor San Francisco to a degree, but I think I think we're maybe overvaluing Jimmy G off of that Thursday night game, and we're still numb to the fact of what Russell Wilson is capable of.
Yeah, I have two big reasons. You mentioned the first one, the disparity in quarterback. And here's the thing with the disparity in quarterback. It's not the middle 80% of plays. Both of these guys are great at making plus throws and good at avoiding negatively graded throws. There are 2 of only 3 quarterbacks in the NFL in the top 10 in both positive throw rate and avoiding negative throw rate. Dak Prescott's the other guy. But where these guys separate is where at the rate at which they make the really bad and the really good throws. Russell Wilson leads the NFL in big-time throws, those over-the-shoulder, beautiful rainbow shots to Tyler Lockett, and now will be Josh Gordon. And he is the best at limiting turnover-worthy plays. He has the fewest of those. Jimmy G is basically middle of the pack in both of those. He has a fourth as many big-time throws. He has more than twice as many turnover-worthy plays. 6 points, 6.5 points here is too many points for a guy in Russell Wilson who is going to make big plays and is going to avoid making catastrophically terrible ones. The second big point is that the main reason the Niners have such a high opinion of themselves, or people have such a high opinion of the Niners, is their defense has been tremendous. We just had the same game happen on Sunday Night Football last Sunday. A tremendous defense who has played no good offenses is going to be overvalued. That is the nature of defense. It is simply more dependent on how good the offenses that they're playing are. And so I would not be surprised to see this happen here again on another Sunday where it turns out that a good offense is able to beat what is a very talented defense. I'm not sure if Josh Gordon can play much of a role, but I'll tell you this, if he can, that receiving corps is definitely going to be able to get open against the Niners. And 6.5 is just, you're getting that key number of 6, obviously. That's just too many points. That convince you?
100%. Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, this is, I believe, this is an unprecedented amount of points a team with this winning percentage is getting, home or road, this late in the season. So it's just one of those things where, again, why are the Seahawks good? They're good because they're good at the most important thing. Okay. Why are people a little bit sleeping on the Niners? It's because they're a little unproven at the most important thing.
Yeah, they almost lost the Cardinals.
And they're great at the things that, right, I mean, the Cardinals would cover this 6 points, right, last week. And they're great at things that continue to be unstable. We saw this New England the other night, right? New England's defense all of a sudden looks ordinary. Like all across the league where it's how well you play offensively, and then everything sort of, cascades down from that. And I think that Russell Wilson at least carries, the Seattle Seahawks to a close game, in which case, I like this as a sweat here.
By the way, when I was writing the article last night, I like to try and throw in musical references or pop culture references, and they're bad. I understand that. It's not like I do a good job of it, but I went down the rabbit hole of watching old Ciara music videos because I was going to make a Ciara, Jimmy G, Aaron Andrews reference. You'll have to read the article to get the full breadth of it. But so I was watching these videos, and I was reminded of being like a high schooler coming home and watching MTV and like wondering if 50 Cent was going to be the #1 music video for like the 80th straight week. And
right.
how ridiculous these music videos are. PD Pablo comes on my computer screen. Like, I mean, it's just the most absurd, hilarious stuff. There was like a cordless phone in the video. I don't know. It brought me down memory lane. Were you similar in the way that you watched? I just assumed every high school student watched like MTV and waited for music videos because we couldn't watch them anywhere else.
Yeah, but TRL was like already showing only like 15 seconds of the video by the time I was in high school. And you're 4 years or so younger than me. So what did you get? You got like a clip of like Fat Joe like shaking his ass or what? Like,
right.
That's like,
well, in fairness, I mean, I probably started watching it, well before high school. Obviously, I just kind of lump everything into one group because I was like,
sure. How'd you like the Fat Joe reference though?
The Fat Joe is incredible. I don't know if I've ever actually seen him shake his ass. I don't think that was something he did. If I remember correctly, he doesn't dance. That was his whole thing.
Yeah.
Because, gun in the pants. All right. That was brutal. We're going to move on now. So we have to pick the lock of the week. These are the games we're considering. I am not going to let us take an under. I'm not going to let that happen.
You're firmly anti-under. The interesting thing about this season, right, is last year we tried to pick totals for like the first 4 weeks and we're terrible. And then we tried like once or twice at the end of the year and we're terrible. And this year we've actually been pretty good, but they've all been overs. And that is, I think, more to your worldview. And I share it. I think I like watching football and I hate watching unders. So like the intersection of those two things mean I don't watch football, and I just don't know if I can do that to myself.
Yes, I'm with you. So it comes down to Chargers -2 on Thursday night or Seattle +6.5 on Monday night. My vote is not. I'm not trying to reverse jinx the Niners, but my vote is for the Seahawks +6.5.
Yeah, I would say with the, I don't think it's right for us to take the number we took in the article. I would be far more reticent to take the Chargers -1 tonight than I would Seattle +6, both article picks. But now, since one number has moved towards us and the other away, I sort of want to buy that extra half point that they're giving me for free. In which case, I would look probably to Seattle here. Here's a secondary thing. I just looked at this again, trying to help you guys out. If you didn't get -1 or pick or -1.5 on the Chargers and you're unsatisfied with -2, there is -1 1/2 of a point first half plus 100 on a bookie that we used to advertise with.
Bookie that we used to know.
Bookie that we used to know. So there are options.
That song is amazing.
There are bookies that, there are options other than the full game that, if you do a little bit of math in your head, offer some value that obviously we don't surface on Greenline because we don't surface all million possible bets. So just a thought there. I'm with you though. I think Seattle plus 6.5 we liked it early in the week. We like it right now. That's not always a good sign, but
no, it's a terrible sign. But remember, we're not going on tilt. So I'd rather
we're not going on tilt.
Regardless of what happens, we can't go on tilt. So we got to say it with our chest here. We're taking the Seahawks plus 6.5 as our lock of the week. We're going to donate any winnings that we get to charity. Hopefully, Russell Wilson cares about charity. We'll find out. Let's go on to the secondary games of the week. These are ones where we didn't feel as strongly. We're going to discuss them anyways. And there will be angles of these games that we don't talk about, but you can see what the math says by going to PFF.com, getting yourself an elite subscription. You get Greenline. It has all the NFL plus all the FBS games. Plus you get premium stats. Really good deal. So I highly advise that you go check it out. And here's the other thing. If your team's already out of it, this is how you make the NFL season exciting. That and the draft. But you ready to go through these?
Yeah, let's do it.
All righty. I'm just going to go in order unless you have a problem with that. So Lions, Bears. Mitch Trubisky, I don't know if you saw this, but was bemoaning the fact that the TVs in Hallis Hall were playing get this, sports television, where they were, get this, talking about how bad the Chicago Bears were playing. And that apparently is rattling him. So I am punting on everything with the Bears. However, so is the market. They are 2.5 point favorites at home against the Lions.
Yeah, it looks like, we have a slight edge on Chicago money line, but at 2.5. Yeah. So, the issue here is the Detroit Lions are going back to being the Detroit Lions and have lacked a defense in recent weeks.
You do hate to see that.
You do hate to see that. And for all of Mitch's foibles last week, in the second half, they did appear to get their groove on a little bit. So I know to me, this is a clear, if you're ever going to bet the Bears, this is now.
The time is now.
But I think I failed the premise to begin with. The if you're ever going to bet the Bears premise. So, but yeah, that's where, Matthew Stafford is, I think, having the best season of his career right now. And unfortunately, we've seen such poor, and injuries have affected it as well. But we've seen such poor play by the Lions defense in recent weeks that it hasn't come to fruition. Does Detroit, after losing a game to an Oakland team that they should have beat, do they rise up again and try to get back to 500, or do they kind of say, "Oh, this is a lost season"? Those are the things I really worry about if I'm back in Detroit here.
I agree with all of your points, and I'm just trying to think about how I could go into a Sunday with any of the money that I have worked hard to earn riding on Mitchell Trubisky's shoulders, and I just don't think I could. Now, if I had
we did back the Bears at home against the Vikings, and they did come through for us, but it was
a long time ago, man.
Chase Daniel.
It's a long time ago.
So we gotta figure out the probability that Mitch Trubisky gets hurt, and Chase Daniel goes in and rights the ship.
So this is a kitchen sink game for both teams. Like the Lions, they have been getting kind of screwed, up and down the season, and it's time for them to kind of pay this off. I think I'd like Matt Stafford as a rallying. A quarterback that people are going to rally around slightly more than Mitch Trubisky. I think if the Bears, the Lions might not have a great defense, but it's probably a defense that can confuse Mitchell Trubisky. And if the Bears get down again, man, at home, that is going to be rough. So it's tough. I guess I guess if I were in a pick'em league, I would lean the Bears because of the value, but I wouldn't like it. Wouldn't feel good about it. All right, next up, Buffalo Bills going to Cleveland. This is a very interesting line because the Cleveland Browns are 3-point favorites. Yes, it was 2.5. I believe it's now 3, and that surprises me.
The Sharps are having another 2017 season where they're betting Cleveland every week and getting drilled.
Yeah, sharps.
Right?
Well, I like to consider us very sharp.
I think in different ways, but the thing, like last week was another one where we, and this was on the PFF Elite Facebook group, we had somebody say, I don't understand how you can have Denver only 2-point-something point underdogs to the Browns. The Browns are so much more talented, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, home field advantage still matters, right? Cleveland Cleveland took their best offensive player off the field on 4th and 1. Like, Kitchen so far has not been able to get a full answer to a question correct.
Nope.
Oh, go for it on 4th down. Great decision. Run a draw on 4th and 9. Bad decision, right? Go for it on 4th 1. Great decision. Take Nick Chubb off the field and run Dontrell Hilliard, right? Like, what? Yeah.
Right. It makes no sense. The receivers and Baker Mayfield look like they're in different books entirely. Yes. He has the most. He's both been like the most unlucky quarterback in terms of non-turnover worthy throws that generally don't get intercepted more than half the time, that have ended up being intercepted, and so it's just a total disaster there. I'm not saying that that's like absolving Baker Mayfield necessarily, but I do think it's just an overall disaster. They had so much success using heavy sets and using play action last year. They're not using heavy sets at all this year, and their play action is a bottom 5 unit offensively in the league. So they have been an absolute disaster. The question is, though, are you willing to back the Bills?
No, and that is, to me, I think it is a situation where if this number got down to 2.5, I'd back Cleveland if I had to at all. But Buffalo, like if you look at our ELO ratings, Cleveland's 23rd and has earned that, and Buffalo's 19. Buffalo is a 6-2 team that is in the bottom half of our power rating, and it's 100% because their quarterback play. I mean, Josh Allen has almost a 4-to-1 turnover-worthy play to big-time throw ratio. That's not good.
It's not good.
And he's in the bottom 5 of the league in terms of producing negatively graded throws. He's had some positives this year. He certainly hasn't looked like the biggest disaster in the world. But he is propped up by playing. I mean, it's very much Trubisky-like last season, Bortles-like 2017, where a bad schedule and a pretty good defense and a coach, like I said, Sean McDermott is doing a pretty good job, that are giving the quarterback just enough, a big enough like edge where if he just does just enough not to hurt you, you can win. There's going to be a week where everything just goes right for Cleveland just by chance alone, like we saw in Baltimore.
Right, I was going to say that already happened.
and I, in that case, I can't see Buffalo beating them.
I'm with you. And that's how I'm picking that game as well. The Falcons and the Saints, a preview of Thanksgiving. The spread is now 13. I'm making you pick a side. You taking the Falcons plus 13?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not. I mean, there's just no way. I understand why the math would shade 13. I get it. I totally understand it, right? Matt Ryan has played well. They have a good offense, all of these things. We do not have a variable in our model that says, is this the Atlanta Falcons? And that, to me, is all you need to know.
I think we could make it like a traveling variable, though, like a traveling trophy. And maybe give it to the Eagles next year. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm praying for for Doug Peterson to overcome. Jets, Giants. The Jets are technically at home. That doesn't really matter. The Giants are favored by 2.5. Your thoughts?
Well, it's going to be hard to do this again, but I kind of like the under in this game, in a Giants game. The Jets, for all of and this number has gone up, right? So it opened 43, it's now 44. We would shade under 44 here. The the Jets want to hide their quarterback a little bit here,
and
he's been bad. and not just, hey, he was bad against the Patriots. No, he's had a couple bad games against some normal teams here. And Le'Veon Bell is a good enough. We talked about this with Joe Mixon. Le'Veon Bell is a good enough running back to get you 4 yards of carry on a bad offense. He's just good enough to get you sustaining a drive for a first down or two, but not good enough to actually have you score points. And the Giants offense, I think, after seeing a week where Daniel Jones showed some flashes of being decent, but ultimately killed them because of turnovers, are probably going to try to hide their quarterback a little bit here too. And to me, that plays to the under.
I hate unders. You know this. We got screwed on one last week, but I would not be deterred here. If I had to bet this game, I guess that's how I would bet it. If you had to pick a side for a pick'em league, 2.5, you taking the underdog?
Yeah, I think you'd have to. Yep.
As much as it sucks. Here's the thing to note: the Giants are not a good football team.
No, they're very bad.
I think some people see this and they're like, "Oh, the Giants are decent, right?" It's like, no, they're not.
No, honestly, the fact that they hung with the Cowboys on Monday Night Football for 2.5 quarters tells me way more about the Cowboys than it tells me about the Giants.
I couldn't agree more. Cardinals Bucks. This is a game you actually we discussed a little bit here, and I think it's interesting because it tells you a little bit about how people view the Cardinals after that San Francisco that game that was close. Andy Isabella was like 86-yarder at the end of the game to pull it a little bit closer. The Bucks are favored by 4.5 after that spirited performance in Seattle. This one is tough to me because 4.5 for Jameis Winston it just feels like a monumental hurdle to climb. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah. I mean, laying points with Jameis Winston, I mean, your ticket is ripped up by the second quarter in like half these games, right? Because we saw it against San Francisco week 1. We said, this is to me, and like our numbers actually shade a little bit towards Tampa Bay, but this is not something I can back. Again, in another Tampa Bay game, we kind of like the under here, but the value is less than 1% though. So it's kind of 52.5. It opened a little higher than that. I probably would like it all the way down to maybe 51.5. But that's only if you like the pain that is unders, and there's not a whole lot to choose from a watching perspective this week. So you might not want to even have to like subject yourself to that. But this is an interesting one. I think Kyler Murray is going to have a pretty good game in this one, in which case Jameis is going to have to do what he did against Seattle, which is keep up. And even when we saw Jameis play a terrific game against Seattle, he fumbles the ball without getting touched, right? Like,
it's a disaster.
There's always something with Jameis that is going to keep them from, consistently having success. And so, like, if that's the case, it's really hard to lay points.
I agree. The other thing is the Cardinals. The reason I like the under here is that the Cardinals, for all of the flash of what Cliff Kingsbury's offense is supposed to be, they're actually just like a pretty boring offense that doesn't turn the ball over and doesn't have a ton of like super explosive plays unless Kyler Murray kind of creates them out of structure. So, that's just too many points. And, if you're looking for something to wager on, that would be it. If I have to take this in a pick'em, like I said, I'd have a hard time laying points with Jameis Winston. You can go to Green Line to see where the math would side, if any. Chiefs Titans. Does Pat Mahomes play? What is your feeling as a Kansas City Chiefs fan?
Yeah, this is interesting because, and a little bit of inside baseball here. We've had some issues with our odds feed this week. This one I think is particularly so because where I look, it looks like Kansas City is laying 6 on the road. Total is 48. Money line for Kansas City's minus 265. So, and that's not what currently is showing up on Green Line. That'll be updated relatively soon here. That seems to mean that Kansas City is playing Mahomes, right? I mean,
they're guarding against it, right?
Yeah, and And some of the books, the ones that we used to build our consensus line, put a number up early in the week and kind of took it down and all that kind of stuff. So, but right now it seems like at least where we're looking in some places, Mahomes is playing. And in that case, the Chiefs are laying a touchdown on the road. Tennessee was a play that Greenline liked all week last week. We talked about on the podcast, there's always something goes wrong with Tennessee, especially after they start feeling themselves for a couple weeks as they were. And that's exactly what happened. They were off. Like, their field goal kicker missed three field goals on Sunday. He was supposed to be the saviors of Ryan Suckup, their actual kicker. They don't cover the 3 points. They don't get through the back door, et cetera, et cetera. They missed the field goal to cut it from 10 to 7.
They're a disaster,
it was a disaster,
man.
It was
an absolute disaster. This is exactly what I told you about the Titans. They are a team that as soon as you think they are good, they are bad. Ryan Tannehill is bad. The interesting thing about the Chiefs is that their defense has seemingly found a couple of things playing Chris Jones on the outside. They really hurt the Vikings doing that, and it allowed them to seemingly play a little bit more free. Now I get it that the Vikings are a little banged up on the receiving end of things, but hey, guess what? The Titans are too, just by the nature of who they are, which is the Titans. So if you happen to be in a pick'em league where they have set the number, just don't be an idiot. Just make sure you check.
Lay the points with the Chiefs if they set it at early
3.5, right?
Yeah, I mean just. Yeah.
All right, Dolphins, Colts. I would like to spend no more than 10 seconds on this game. The spread is 10. Are you taking the Colts or the Dolphins?
Dolphins, but I'm not watching.
That's more than 10 seconds. I'll take the Dolphins too. We'll move on to the Carolina Panthers at the Green Bay Packers. This is an interesting game. I anticipated this to be about a 6-point spread because I think the Packers get a lot of love. Obviously, the Packers played terribly, and that's probably why it's not 6. It's 5.5 right now. That being said, Kyle Allen, the shine has worn off a little bit. It's basically Christian McCaffrey or bust for the Panthers. So is that enough to back a team getting 5.5 in Lambeau?
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, Allen's almost 6% of his passes are turnover worthy. The Carolina offense has negative expected points on run plays, even though McCaffrey is supposedly the MVP of the league, and negative EPA per pass play as well. So they're not humming, right? They're a team that's played some bad teams.
Opposite of hum.
Yeah, and one thing to talk about briefly. Carolina was 6-2 starting last year. They ended up 7-9. Which team is going to be that this year? It could very well be the Carolina Panthers, who aren't even 6-2 to start. But so this is, to me, a place where I think Green Bay gets healthy. At home, Panthers to me are not very good. Allen's going to give them turnovers, and I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have his way here with Carolina.
I agree. Now, some news just came out. Robbie Gould strained his quad, and it seems like him playing Monday is doubtful. The Niners just signed Chase McLaughlin, who was a free agent kicker. So if you needed,
son of Sarah McLaughlin,
right? So if you needed any, if you needed any extra reason, the question, as we always ask, is does this help or hurt a team? Because the Niners have a good offense. They should go for 4th and short. With this crappy kicker coming in, do they now do that more often? And does that actually end up hurting you if you take the Seahawks?
Well, I would agree with that if Gould was healthy all the way through the season, but he has not been himself. So if they were inclined not to, they were probably more inclined not to use him than normal. So, but that's a good point. But that's great. That means maybe an extra point here or there for that pick.
Right. I'm with you on the Packers. It's tough because I love Christian McCaffrey, mostly because I just think the dude is a stud off the field as much as he is on the field. But the Panthers,
he does earn respect there. He's
earned a lot of respect. You have to respect Christian McCaffrey, especially if you're Danny Amendola. The tough thing is that I got to think that Devontae Adams was nowhere near his regular self last week. And that game, kind of a letdown game. You figure you're going to bring your fans there. You're in LA. Everyone's, excited about it. I think they probably put the pedal back on the metal here. I don't necessarily think Cam Newton being put on IR gives Kyle Allen some new breath of fresh air and he turns the corner. So those are my thoughts. Rams at the Steelers. Mason Rudolph getting 3.5 at home. Everyone talks about how Jared Goff is abysmal on the road. You can also spend a ton of time talking about how Sean McVay is a great coach. Which one wins out here? The extra time to prepare for McVay or the fact that Goff has been a little shaky?
Yeah, I mean, equal number of turnover-worthy plays is big-time throws.
It's not great.
So that's not good. And the question is through a bye week, are some of the edges going to start to be bigger for Goff? And we postulated at the beginning of the year that an entire offseason was going to elicit that, and it didn't, right? I mean, they've had some success offensively, but have been mostly plotting for them. The Steelers are a good defense. We have them in the top 10 in terms of our rating. Minkah Fitzpatrick has done a pretty good job since showing up. Their linebackers, have had their moments, good and bad, but they're getting pass rush from Bud Dupree, so on and so forth. Brandon Cooks appears to be out with a concussion, so they're not even going to be as multifaceted offensively as they want to be. We like Pittsburgh going into the year. They're now 4-4. Do we think they win this game outright?
If they win this game outright, then Los Angeles has got some real problems.
As a city.
Yes.
As a sports town, not
right.
As a city.
As a football town. They have no problems as a basketball town. Aside from the fact that Kawhi's load management is absolutely hilarious. Dude,
I read the ticker
is on
that
vacation.
He had to fake a knee injury so he didn't piss off the league or something.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it sucks because they were playing the Bucs last night, and that's a game that's on national TV that everyone wants to watch. And this dude is like, "Nah, man, I got to rest my knee." I don't know. I don't want to. I just think it's weak. I just think as a fan, it sucks. And I don't know. I wish they didn't do that. That's the great thing about the NFL. The NFL has figured it out from a scarcity perspective. These games matter so much. Remember in the World Series, it's like Game 7. Oh, thank God, we finally have a game after 800 that matters. Yeah. Every game in the NFL is basically as close to a Game 7 as you can get for a regular season, right? They all matter a ton. And then obviously in the playoffs, they're all Game 7. It's so perfect. And so the Rams need to win this game. And if they do not win this game, it is a disaster. Right? If you can't beat Mason Rudolph and you're Jared Goff and you're making all this money, it's a really bad look. So I get that the Brandon Cooks thing hurts a little bit, but you've had this week to prepare. The Steelers should have lost to the frickin' Dolphins, man. So I don't know that I'm necessarily laying the points. I think, gun to my head, that's what I would do. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like under in this game. If I'm going to have to bet aside.
Right. I always think about it more from I'm forced to pick this in some sort of pool.
If I'm forced to pick this, I'm going to lay the points of the Rams and just sweat it out here.
I don't hate the under, though. Protect Goff a little bit. Defense.
Protect Mason Rudolph.
Yeah. There. I mean, look, we're getting close to Christmas. You better protect your man. All right, that is the week 10. Man, can you believe it's 10? I can't. Week 10 slate. It should be a fun one because there are a couple of good games. The majority of the games, trash, but a couple of games should be good. We will be back with you late on Sunday night, early Monday morning. Be sure to check that out. We try to put together some good content for you guys so that on Monday morning you can get rolling on the next week. And of course, if you want any more, head to pff.com, get yourself an elite subscription. We've got one story though from the Cincy Y this week. And we had taken a little hiatus from playing basketball. And then I forget who it was. Was it Sam? Sam and Steve occasionally feel good enough that they can play basketball.
Right.
Like it's once every month.
The elder statesman of PFF decided.
Once every month the calf heals for Sam, and is it a knee problem for Steve? Knee and hair problem for Steve.
Yes.
And they're like, hey, let's play basketball. So we went out there and we played a little bit. And I was working out. I came upstairs. I just so happened to get put on your team. So it was me and you. And what's your favorite duo to compare us to on the basketball court?
Well, you're not out of control, but I like the Jason Williams, Chris Webber comparison because, me guarding Steve is 7 inches taller than me. I am an undersized 5 in that situation, much like Weber was at the end of his career.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was that told Chris Webber to get his ass under the basket and stop shooting threes.
But that
person could have applied the same demands to me in that game. But you're not out of control enough to be like Jason Williams. But I like that comparison. I, of course, growing up a Timberwolves fan, said Marbury Garnett.
That's a good one.
Stockton Malone.
Stockton Malone is funny as well, though you shoot far too many threes to be Malone. I was thinking back to like NBA Jam. Peyton Kemp was a fun one. Schrempf Kemp, that was kind of a sneaky one because Schrempf could shoot.
I could not hope to replicate Kemp off the court though.
Nope. Nor on the court. Actually, he could jump probably 800 times higher than you. And I'm thinking of current duos, and we might be kind of like Paul George and Kawhi because we just don't play that often. We're just constantly managing the load. I don't know.
The tough part was, the tough part is how the fairness there because Steve is, we give Steve a lot of crap, but he's actually decent.
Yeah, well, he's 8 feet tall.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's hard to be bad, but if you put you on his team, it'd be immediately unfair. And then if you put me on his team, it'd be immediately unfair. So it was natural for me and you to be on the same team, but then ultimately that made the teams unfair as well.
You know what I'm going to go with? We are, if you compare us to modern day duos, we are Luka and Kristaps Porzingis. Okay. And I'm not skin color guy. I'm not that dumb. But the reason that works is both of us shoot way better than we really take to the basket. And actually, I'm the one that I think goes to the basket a little more often than you. You're more of I will give you one dribble, step back, or one dribble, post up jump shot type of deal. So that's what I'm going with for modern day guys.
You're a much better one-on-one player. I'm a slasher when it comes to going to the basket. I don't beat people one-on-one because I'm older and slower for sure. But yeah, that's the block shot against Steve was like a momentous moment for me though.
I wish we had video. That would be the best PFF video we could put out.
I know.
That is our story from the Cincy Y. Hopefully you come back with a story from the Philly gym that you go to or some sort of Philadelphia story. I'm waiting for it. You are at a conference, a sports analytics conference. You're going to be on a panel about football analytics. So everyone, I meant to mention this at the top of the show. I did not. Everyone should try and find a live stream that you will tweet out if you can get it. But have fun, be safe, and try to make it through TSA in one piece.
The last part, dubious, but the other part's probable. Let's go.
All right. Peace out. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll see you on the flip side.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.